extremely challenging to be a junior PM right now because with all those tools, large language models, AI agents, automation, the low-hanging fruits can be done by artificial intelligence. Even the ideas that work usually require many iterations, and even if they are good from the start, you do not want to deliver an entire idea on production. You want to deliver that idea in some smaller chunks to minimize the time to learn. The goal of discovery is to ensure that the features that you ship are the right ones. And as a result, you are supposed to deliver more value, not less value. So unless you are measuring the value you create by the number of features, the discovery will help you create more value for the customers, and as a result, it works much better when everyone is engaged in this discovery process, when people are asking questions about our goals, they can see our ideas before those ideas are even tested. There are a lot of people in your company, like stakeholders, customer success, support, who spend hundreds of hours with your customers every month, and ignoring what they know is a waste. You cannot perform product discovery just starting with.
Welcome to today's episode of the Product Growth Podcast. I'm super excited to have my good friend of many years, Paul Hearn, here with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, Akash.
So if you don't know, basically my entire journey is thanks to Paul. Paul is the man behind the Product Compass newsletter. He writes to over 70,000 subscribers there. He has hundreds of thousands on LinkedIn. And I have to say, I have a bit of a man crush on his content. He writes really thoughtful content. All of his content tends to go super viral on LinkedIn, and he is a practicing PM as well. So he's a senior product manager at Ideals. So he has a ton of insights to share with us. So Paul, where I want to start is your hot takes for product management. And one of the ones I love is that you've said junior PM roles are done. Can you explain?
Yeah, I believe that it's extremely challenging to be a junior PM right now because with all those tools, large language models, AI agents, automation, the low-hanging fruits can be done by artificial intelligence. And at the same time, I see that the senior PMs who learn how to use those tools can achieve even more, which only adds a pressure that you don't need so many PMs to manage a product.
Yeah. So do you think that the ratio of product managers to engineers, which historically has been in that 7 to 10 engineers per product manager range, is going to expand so that a PM supports more engineers?
It depends if we still need junior developers. Because if the only job of the developer, and it is not the case right now, but when I started working as a .NET developer, some developers were responsible only for basic root operations, like displaying a list of items, editing these items, saving this to the database. So these types of operations can be easily automated with the tools like Cursor, Replit, and even you can ask ChatGPT to generate the code for that. So I expect that if I had to guess, we will need less juniors, both in terms of developers and in terms of product people or designers even.
Okay, so basically what I'm hearing is all the junior tasks that PMs, designers, engineers, the whole product trio is doing, AI will take away. Now, where I want to press you a little bit on this opinion is, doesn't that just mean that the people who are junior take on higher level tasks? Why does it necessarily mean that they're going to be less junior people?
Today's episode is brought to you by June, the customer analytics for product-focused teams. Are you not sure what users do in your SaaS? What features they use the most? Do you wish that you could know what each company does and use this information to generate incremental lift in revenue? June is the product analytics platform you need. It generates profiles for each of your customers that get you closer to your most important ones. It also connects your product data to your CRM so you can get a full view of your customers in one place, so you can engage with the right message at the right time. What makes June different is that it's made for B2B SaaS. It comes with account-level analyses, fast ways to look up your customers, and CRM integrations to share this information between your product, your success, and sales teams. And one line of code is all you need, and you're good to go. Sign up for a free trial today at june.so/akash. That's june.so/AAKASH. You get a discount if you use my link. This episode is brought to you by Sprig. What if product teams knew exactly what to build to reach their goals? From increasing conversion to boosting engagement, these challenges require a deep understanding of your users, something we can't get from product analytics alone. Meet Sprig, a product experience platform that generates AI-powered opportunities to continuously improve your product at scale. First, Sprig captures your product experience in real time through heat maps, replays, surveys, and feedback studies. Then, Sprig's industry-leading AI instantly analyzes all of your product experience data to generate real-time insights. Sprig AI goes even further with actionable product recommendations to drive revenue, retention, and user satisfaction. Join product teams at Figma and Notion by uncovering AI-powered product opportunities at scale. Visit sprig.com/product-growth-podcast to book a demo and get a $75 gift card.
So in order to take higher level tasks into experience, it's not enough to learn a few frameworks and like the theory. And so, for example, if you want to create a product strategy, it's not enough to download the product strategy canvas or business model canvas or lean canvas and just go from there. You need years of experience to understand how to do it well, what are the risks, how the practice is different from theory sometimes. And yeah, so if you take a person just after graduation without experience, and large language model in many cases, or even in most cases, will perform better.
It's true. And I think that in an era of GPT-5, GPT-6, GPT-7, I think we'll only see that those models become more and more capable. Now I want to move to another hot take that you have, which you've said, talking to customers and creating value for customers is not enough. So what is enough?
The key thing to understand is that every product has two purposes. One is creating value for the customers, and as a result, you can capture some part of this value for the business. And I saw you talk to Itamar Gilad, and he also has some great thoughts on that. And I see that there is this trend that product managers are expected to focus more and more, not just on product outcomes, but on customer outcomes, but also from this business perspective. So how our products, how features we build, not just help our customers, but how they help us build competitive advantage, how this will result in a bigger revenue for the customer, for our organization, or how it will result in reducing the churn. And if you work with traditional tools, for example, with opportunity solution tree, which is a great approach, you always start with customer outcomes. So those are product outcomes, but they describe changes in human behavior. And then teams are supposed to discover problems that, when solved, will drive those expected outcomes. But those problems are limited to customer outcomes. To customer problems and customer outcomes, so outcomes that customers care about. So what I like to do is to extend the opportunity solution tree, and on the top we place a problem that the team is currently working on. So this can be product outcome or customer problem or business outcome. And I like identifying not just customer opportunities, but also business opportunities. For example, moving a feature from a lower tier to the higher one. And even though it doesn't create a value for the customers, actually it reduces value for the customers in the lower tier. It is essential to capture more value for the business. So this is the trend that I'm observing, that we focus more on the value for the business, and while building and thinking, starting with the customers, we also need to consider the impact on the business outcomes.
Yeah, I think it's like a circle. So there's like the circle of fashion that everybody knows. 20 years ago, we were in baggy clothes. 5 years ago, we were in skinny. Now we're back to baggy. I've seen the exact same trend in PM. So when I started in 2008, I don't know if many listeners know this, but like PMs, we used to write these things like BRDs or MRDs, which were like business or market requirements documents. It was business first. Then we had this huge shift to PRDs and putting the user first. I think Google played a big role in this because Google preaches like PMs must put the user first. And so PMs kind of had it fashionable to focus on the user, but I really feel like the pendulum has swung back to the business.
Yeah, I believe that at the end of the day, so we start with the customers because I believe that value for the customers and customer outcomes are correlated with leading indicators. So if you focus on the revenue, you cannot track changes in revenue on a daily basis, but you can track changes in customer satisfaction, in customer effort score, in time to task completion. So it is easier to focus on value for the customers. You can measure that. You have a faster feedback loops. And as a result, in the long term, creating value for the customers, improving that value for the customers results in capturing more value for the business. But the goal for every organization is to create value for the business. So, and also another reason to focus on the customers, and why many product managers like to focus on the customers, is that it's hard to be excited by the monetary goals. So if your goal is to increase revenue by 10%, it's hard to get excited about that. But if you want to help others and you can connect it to your mission, to your vision, it's something that it is much more easier to engage with. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it's certainly more motivating to provide value to the users than to move everything from your free plan to your paid plan. So it's something in the middle, but I hear your point here, which is like, creating value for customers is not enough. You also need to create value for the business. And ideally, you're also doing something that is technologically new, because otherwise competitors will just come in and copy you pretty much straight away, and you won't create any durable advantage. So it really goes back to our friend Marty, who we interviewed earlier this year's original thesis, which is it needs to be at the intersection of user, business, and what's most technically recently possible.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So another one of your hot takes is we need to balance empowerment with how mature the team is. Explain.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working in different organizations, and in some organizations, team were more mature. In some organizations, they were, let's say, less mature. And what I noticed is that it's very easy to fully empower, trust, and the team that is very mature. So people that are used to think about the business perspective, are used to talking to customers. They do not need much. Like it's enough to communicate the strategic context, to explain what are our goals, and they can figure out the rest. But when you have a team of juniors, like junior developers, junior designers, I think you need not only to, well, you still need to lead with the strategic context. This still matters. So what we are doing, why we are doing it, why does it matter, how it will create value for the business, how it will create value for our customers. But if you give them too much freedom, they can feel lost, and as a result, they are disengaged at work.
Yeah, I've had this experience myself where I've worked with more junior either designers or engineers, and I've had expectations that they'll perform like a senior. Like with a designer, I can just give them the high level spec and they're going to totally nail the UX. But it doesn't turn out that they're actually able to do that. Or with an engineer, I can give them an 80% complete PRD and they'll work out the corner cases. I find that the more junior they are, the less they're able to handle that ambiguity, able to make those product decisions. Ultimately, their product thinking isn't as advanced.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's important to balance empowerment with, at the same time, control, but not in the sense of micromanaging, but rather, especially if you are a manager, coaching others and helping them understand what are the best practices, how to work, how to, for example, if you are working on continuous product discovery, how to approach discovery, how you can identify assumptions, how you can test your assumptions by experimenting. And we cannot just expect that people will know that and that will figure out everything just after we give them a goal. So if I had a junior PM, I think it is also important to, especially for product leaders, to actively work with those people. And just to coach them so that you can upgrade their skills and eventually coach them until they become competent enough.
Yeah, I personally feel like this is part of the reason founder mode is such a thing, is because so many founders, especially your Series A, Series B startups, your PM teams that are less than 10 people, they're not paying for the creme de la creme of the talent. They're not paying for 90% market. They're paying for, 30, 40% market rates. If they're doing that, then they inherently get people who require more hand-holding, who can handle less empowerment.
Yeah, I had the same in my startup. So, but also in the past, when I was working with junior people, an essential part of leading them was focusing on how to teach them what they need to know in order to be able to perform their work.
So we've been talking about the product trio, but I think you have a hot take on the product trio, which is that we don't need a clear definition. Why?
Yeah, so first of all, so the product trio, this is a concept by Teresa Torres, described in continuous discovery habits. And when we talk about the product trio, we typically think about product manager, designer, and lead engineer working together. But even Teresa Torres doesn't say that those must be those three roles. So for example, if you have a platform team, it makes perfect sense to skip the designer. Or maybe if you are working on some more complex product, you can include user researcher or data analyst. And for example, right now at Ideals, I work with product designer, content designer, data analyst, engineering manager, and me. So we have a product quintet. But the more I work with this concept, and this is my take, I'm not even sure we need to draw a clear boundary between the product trio or product quartet or product quintet and the rest of the team. And what inspired me about the Lean UX, so a great book I highly recommend, is that they emphasize the importance of allowing everyone on the team to contribute according to their skills and interests. So what I do right now at my work is that we do not have a closed group. Like usually we work in the quintet, but every engineer who wants to participate, they can participate. Our channels, like a Slack channel, are open. Anyone can join our discussions. Sometimes we may work with a product marketing manager, depending on what we need and depending on how they are interested in what we are doing right now. Yeah, I think it is important, especially when talking about engineers, because this is when the problem might be the most visible. Is not to select just one person, and this is a person selected for the product tree, or this is a person selected for product discovery, and all those other people, those are people who will just be responsible for coding. It works much better when everyone is engaged in this discovery process, when people are asking questions about our goals, they can see our ideas before those ideas are even tested, before we present them in the product backlog, and also when they are encouraged to challenge ideas during the refinements. So before we put final ideas in the product backlog and before we select them for implementation. And actually right now in my company, it works exactly like this. So not just an engineering manager, but also others on the product team challenge ideas, suggest solutions, and participate in different meetings. They are not responsible just for coding.
Okay, so specifically within the engineering side, we can't just have one engineering representative in the trio's activities of continuous discovery. We need to involve all of the engineers, or at least all of the ones who want to occasionally be involved. There'll still be those headphone engineers who just want to code, but for anyone who wants to be involved, let's involve them. A final element that I find interesting about the trio is the division of responsibilities. I feel like the division of responsibilities is kind of this underrated source of tension, where Teresa wants, the three, whoever it is, we've just said for the engineer, it could rotate, but she wants all of them to be at the activities. And I think that designers, they often want to do their own discovery process on their own, in addition, outside of what the whole team is doing. I think PMs often want to do some wireframing. So basically, in particular with the PM and designer, the lines are not so clear. What do you feel like the division should be there?
So there are two things we need to do. The first thing is to embrace this messy nature of product discovery and add feedback loops and visualize that you can transition, so that even though there is some logical sequence of steps, this is not a process. And the second thing I would like to fix about the double diamond is that it doesn't represent product discovery well, because the original double diamond by the design council ends with shipping features to production and delivering value for the customers. And as we know, in product management, we have those two streams that run in parallel. So, for example, Jeff Patton has been talking about and has been a big proponent of dual track agile, but also Marty Kagan currently talks about continuous discovery and continuous delivery. So for me, the double diamond of product discovery is about exploring the problem space, structuring your knowledge, ideating, and testing your assumptions by experimenting. And what I call the third diamond at the bottom is about delivering value for the customers. So you first plan your work. If you work in iterations, those are sprints that you have in Scrum, but even if you work in approaches like Kanban, there is still some planning phase where you split larger stories to tasks for developers, and then you deliver that, maybe not in iterations, but as that the work flows through different stages. So, yeah, the first thing is to get rid of delivery and separate delivery as a separate stream, and embrace that all those phases, all those diamonds are interconnected. So, for example, the outcomes from delivery stream can inform your product discovery or can inform your experiments. And actually, most of the ideas, even the good ideas that so even the ideas that work usually require many iterations. And even if they are good from the start, you do not want to deliver an entire idea on production. You want to deliver that idea in some smaller chunks to minimize the time to learn So ship something simple to the customers, get feedback, and iterate from there.
So what are the biggest mistakes product managers make in discovery?
Something that I hear commonly here is claiming that we do not have time for discovery. So first of all, some people do not understand that discovery is not to take away your time. Of course, you will be less. If especially if engineers contribute to discovery, they might have less time to work on the features. But the goal of discovery is to ensure that the features that you ship are the right ones, and as a result, you are supposed to deliver more value, not less value. So unless you are measuring the value you create by the number of features, the discovery will help you create more value for the customers, and as a result, capture more value for the business. So this is what people really need to understand. Then another type of the problem is limiting product discovery to just customer interviews. Of course, customer interviews are important, but I have seen many product managers who, after starting their work, wanted to discover everything from scratch. Like there was no existing knowledge in the organization. And what I often tell product managers is that there are a lot of people in your company, like stakeholders, customer success, support, who spend hundreds of hours with your customers every month. And ignoring what they know is a waste.
Founders are often deeply knowledgeable about the customer, right? They know the most about the customer than anybody.
Yeah, that's often the case. They have spent enormous amount of time talking to the customers, doing research, market research, understanding how competitors work. And if a new product manager starts work and just ignores that, and I want to talk to the customers because I need to understand, validate all the problems and discover it myself, this is wasteful. And the goal of product discovery is to eliminate waste or minimize waste. So talking to those people is essential. You also need to include insights from product analytics if you have an existing product. So many different sources of insight, not just customer interviews. Another problem is a mistake would be doing discovery alone. So product discovery is not a task for a single person, and we already discussed that. That you need to bring different people to the table, people with different perspectives, different experiences, so that they can all contribute and look at the problem from different angles. So that's essential. And maybe the last, I can think of more mistakes, but the last one would be to interpreting discovery as some initial phase, that once we do discovery, we can hand off the results of discovery to the team, and now we are done, you just deliver it and everything will be great. And the problem with that is that first, product discovery doesn't eliminate the risks completely. It minimizes the risks, but we cannot test every hypothesis, and some hypotheses honestly cannot be tested in advance. Sometimes you have such complex features that only testing them with the users or with A/B testing, but you still need to deliver something to perform an A/B test. Sometimes you also need to deliver things to production and learn from customers using it. And even if you have performed experiments, this is not the same as people using your product for real, with the real data in real environments. Something on the market might have changed. So it is essential to remember that you need to those continuous cycles of discovering, delivering, learning from it, and going back to discovery cycles.
So it's one thing to understand all this in theory. Can you walk us through an example of a big feature you recently had and the specific discovery activities you decided to schedule and how it looked iteratively?
So recently we got an objective about extending the use cases that we want to cover. So to solve problems of specific customer segment. And from there, instead of talking right away to the customers, I went through analyzing support requests, support tickets, and the feedback from customer effort score and customer satisfaction score. So the knowledge that was already in the organization, not customer interviews. So I didn't pretend that there is no existing knowledge in the organization. I also spoke, or actually we spoke to customer support, to customer success, to better understand what customers from that specific market, what problems they have, and how we could best help them. The next step was we actually were able to secure interviews with a few customers, but they only confirmed our assumptions. So there was really not a lot of new learning from those customer interviews. And the next step was bringing all those insights, the data, tickets, some trends from product analytics for the product quintet meeting, where we started with some initial idea on how this problem can be solved. We created a prototype in Figma, a clickable prototype that we were later able to test with the users. And the first step was testing the prototype with internal users. So we just shared it on Slack within the organization so that we can, it is easier, it is faster than scheduling customer interviews. And then after including the initial feedback, we actually tested that with the customers. When the customers got this was a specific type of test when the customer gets a task to accomplish without any explanation how the system works, and we track what steps they take in order to perform this task, and we measure the number of misclicks. We also asked the customer to think out loud. So as they were going through the prototype, they were asked to describe what they see on the screen and how they interpret what they see, so that we can understand if there are any gaps in the user experience, in the flows, or maybe something that customers doesn't expect. And after confirming, after validating that the prototype works as expected, instead of implementing everything at once, we selected a very small subset of functionality, basically solving the most pressing problem in a very simple way. So not implementing all the additional use cases, some additional filtering, but just a basic happy path that perhaps it can solve a problem for 70% of the customers, and shipping it to production, so that even though theoretically we could continue with prototypes, adding features, and making more complex experiments, we preferred to ship something on production and just see how customers will use it, what they will suggest.
Yeah, so I think that what I heard there is 4 major steps. So step 1, mind your internal company, talk to people at your company, look at customer support, look at data. Step 2, go talk to customers. Step 3, put an initial prototype out there for your internal users. Step 4, do usability testing with your prototype in front of real users. And then kind of 4B, figure out based on that real testing with users what the MVP is that you send to production. Did I get that right?
Yeah, in this specific case, yes, and this is the process I like to follow. So before you talk, especially before talking to the customers, you need to understand what are your research questions. So the questions you need to know to answer to, and then based on that, you can formulate questions, think about questions that you will actually ask to the users. So starting with interviews and wondering what I can ask this person about, it wouldn't make much sense. You need to start with something.
Awesome. So I hope that helps people understand, like, from theory to practical, that's what often a discovery process will look like. And what Powell has highlighted doesn't need to take very long. I don't know how long it took you in that specific example, but I remember when I first started product management in like 2008, seeing that 4-step process, I would think, oh, this might need to take me a month. What really opened my eyes was when I most recently worked at Apollo.io. I would have senior ICPMs go through that process you just mentioned in like 4 days. Day 1, internal. Day 2, internal users. Day 3, talk to customers. Day 4, prototype testing. Like, you can just do it that fast. It doesn't need to be this long, drawn out process.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes you can skip some of the steps. So, for example, some problems are obvious and you don't necessarily need to test it with the customers. You can just share a prototype internally, or sometimes the problem is the problem is so obvious and the solution is so obvious that you can skip discovery completely and just deliver things to production.
And then you do discovery via having the data in production, though. You don't just stop there. You look at what people are actually using. Maybe you use some session replays. Maybe you use some heat maps to kind of recreate discovery, right? And then you iterate in production.
I'm a bit obsessed about tracking data. So almost every day I use Heap to understand how customers use our product and the features that we recently released, like user funnels, the number of events. Then when I see something unexpected, I then drill down by customer segments or by cohorts to better understand the trends and better understand how people are really using it. And of course, I also have session recordings. I don't do it so often because it is more difficult to aggregate the data.
That's true. It is harder to aggregate, but what I like about session recordings is, let's say you have like an enterprise account. This enterprise account delivers 10-20% of your revenue. I always like to go see what the buyer is doing in that account just to make sure that they stay. All right, let's move on. So that's our masterclass in discovery. Do check out his newsletter. He writes a lot about discovery in there. I want to talk about metrics. And I really like your framework of 3 types of metrics. So what are they, and how does this differ from how Teresa Torres defines product outcomes?
I think we are talking about 3 types of product outcomes, and I get the impression that what I talk about is aligned with Teresa Torres, especially she might have mentioned it in her blog. So overall, there are 3 types of product outcomes. The 3 types of outcomes. The first type is our product business outcomes, so outcomes that stakeholders care about the most, like revenue, churn, market share, and the problem with business outcomes is that the specific team, cannot necessarily influence them directly. So we need to translate those business outcomes into product outcomes. So something that the team can directly influence. And I'm not sure I should analyze how Teresa interprets it in details, but okay, at the top of the opportunity solution tree, you'll typically have the product outcome, which is, as Joshua said, also noticed. This is related to the change in human behavior. So, for example, you can translate a business outcome of reduced churn by 10% to customers click a specific button or spend 20% more time in our app every month. So this is something related not to the revenue, not the churn, but to something that people do in your app. And this is something that the team can directly influence. And The third type of outcomes, those are customer outcomes. In jobs to be done, they can be called desired outcomes. So this is something that customers care about. So obviously customers do not care if they spend 10 times more in the app or if they churn or not. They only care about the value they get from the product. And the three types of outcomes are functional outcomes. So for example, for a car, it's traveling from point A to B. Another type of outcomes are outcomes related to emotions, like what do you feel when driving BW, when driving Mercedes, or what do you feel when driving a sports car? And the third type of outcomes are outcomes related to social aspects, like how people perceive you or how you perceive yourself when using a product. And a great example can be Tesla. So, for example, what driving Tesla communicates to the others, and also what it tells you about your values, about your approach to environment, and what are the signals that you're sending in the society. So those are the three types of outcomes to simplify.
So my follow-up question is, I was just talking to a VP of product at a public tech company that's worth about $100 billion. And he was saying that they have this debate going on within their company. So these are a bunch of people who understand what we just explained, where there's this debate that so many product teams are goaled on these product outcomes, but they're moving those product outcomes like successfully, but they're not ultimately moving their business outcomes. So he was saying like they're having this debate to give more teams business outcomes. But then, of course, you know, your internal tools, your platform PMs are the first to speak up and say, hey, we can't even directly move the business outcomes. So he's kind of landing within his org around like 70 to 80% of the teams who can move a business outcome, even if it is a second or a third order effect. That's the key sort of North Star metric that they have, which is like a business outcome. So this is an e-commerce business. So they're giving everybody outcomes around AOV. But at the same time, then we do lose that connection you were just mentioning around product outcomes. So I'm curious, like, how do product leaders, how should they negotiate this debate between whether teams should be goaled on product outcomes or business outcomes or both? What have you seen in your experience?
Mm-hmm. In my experience, and I wrote about it in the newsletter, product outcomes are not always enough. Because at the end of the day, you want. But the only issue is when setting an outcome or an objective with key results for the team that I would care about is that the team can directly influence that goal, and do not obsess whether those are changes in human behavior or not. It's not relevant. As long the team can directly influence it, it's a good problem to solve for the team. And for example, actually, I don't encourage people to use outcomes directly. I prefer using objectives and key results, or you can express the meaningful problem to solve and a set of key results for the team differently. But anyway, this would be something like the objective that we have, why it is important, and a set of key results. And some of those key results can be related to solving a problem for the customer, and others can be related to capturing value for the business. So instead of setting just one, just one metric, one desired outcome, I prefer doing it like you have this objective and key result or any other team objective at top of your opportunity solution tree, and you perform discovery from there. And then every opportunity that you discover and you place on your opportunity solution tree must contribute to the outcomes, to key results related to creating value for the customers, but also they must work for the business.
Now let's move into strategy. I think strategy and customer discovery are the two topics I feel like are your like big wheelhouse. You're always advancing the thinking of the product field on those. So within strategy, you say strategy differs from a business model. So can you briefly just explain the difference between those two?
Yeah, sure. Business model is just about revenue streams and cost structure. The issue with that is that, or not, maybe not an issue, but the popular business model canvases like business model canvas and lean canvas, they are not just about business model. Those are strategic tools, and they contain many elements of product strategy. And so, for example, and the strategy is about making choices. So in order to win, you need to decide why we are doing it. So what is your vision? What you are trying to achieve? Because without a vision, making decisions doesn't make much sense. Then you need to define your customers, your market, so the problems that people have. Then you need to define how you are going to solve those problems, high level. So this is your value proposition. And what will be the outcomes for the customers, what they will gain, what pains we will solve. And finally, how it differs from what others on the market offer. This can be represented as a value curve, but also we need to think about something that will make our strategy difficult to copy. And the business model canvas and lean canvas address many elements of strategy. In particular, lean canvas addresses the unfair advantage. Business model canvas doesn't do that. So, and as we know, the moment you succeed is the moment that someone else will try to do the same. So I think lean canvas addresses it better. At the same time, none of those tools addresses the vision. So making decisions without the clear why that you want to communicate, and this is the basic tool you need. The basic thing you need to communicate when working with people is why we are doing this. So that's the main thing that those canvases are missing, in my opinion.
Well, I think that a lot of PMs get this advice to be more strategic. How can they do that?
I would have to understand what being more strategic means, because I'm not sure how you can be a product manager and do not think about strategy. Everything we do needs to be embedded in the strategic context. So you cannot perform product discovery just starting with your objective and not understanding who are your competitors, what is unique about our product, what we are trying to achieve in the long term. Those are how we grow, what are our marketing and sales channels. Those are basic questions and that every product manager needs to answer. You need to understand how your business works, because one of the risks you are responsible for is making sure that what the team is building will work for the business. So being more strategic, for sure you need to understand every aspect of the product strategy, of the strategy of the product that you are working on. Also, so maybe what we mean by being more strategy is actively contributing to strategy. And in my experience, strategy is best defined when it is built top to bottom and bottom to top, because it's not something that CEO or chief of product can do alone. You need people. So of course you need this high level strategic thinking, and but also you need to be close to the customers and see, and people being closest to the problems are engineers, are designers, product managers, sales, customer success. So product managers can facilitate that discussion. And in my head, continuous product discovery that we are performing on a weekly basis, it informs your product strategy. So this is not just one-way relationship, like some product leader at the top creates a product strategy and then product managers execute it. It's rather that it is an ongoing discussion between product leaders and product managers and product teams, so that the initial interviews you make, the patterns that you observe in the data, it informs how your strategy, how your product strategy evolves. And you provide insights, you provide data, you can identify trends.
I'm hearing is like a lot of the important elements of strategy should be embedded in the discovery work that we're talking about, in the business outcome work that we talked about at the very beginning, our very first question. Like, you can't just be focused on customer value. So if a PM is doing all of that, which let's admit most PMs are not, but if they are and they're still getting this feedback, then really they need to speak up. They need to socialize these insights. They need to be willing to challenge the strategy as it exists today in order to improve it.
Mm-hmm. If I got this feedback, I would like to understand what exactly it means, because for me, it's product manager needs to work with strategy on a daily basis. But I can talk about my example. So at Ideals, every product manager is supposed to contribute to strategy, to actually not just execute the objectives, but identify some new opportunities, find new use cases, suggest the objectives for the future. So it's not like a top-to-bottom management. We actually work on our strategy and contribute to how it evolves over time.
Yeah, but I think that's not the majority of PMs. If we look at the majority of PMs still, they're in banks, they're in hardware companies, they're in different companies where they're handed a strategy. So if you use the discovery techniques that we talked about, even if you're handed a strategy, make sure you're speaking up about what you're learning. Make sure you're shaping what you're building. And that's where I want to go next, because what is the most heart of product management is, I think, a topic of debate. And I think we also within this conversation have taken multiple sides of this debate. So one side of the debate would say, hey, it's strategy. So in fact, you'll see like some product managers, they're not very involved in delivery. Then one side of the debate would say it's all about discovery. Like once you're handed the strategy, you need to finesse it. And those PMs are all focused on discovery. Then another side of the debate would say, hey, it's more about moving metrics. You need to do whatever it takes. I think you have actually said it's about managing risks, which I think then comes more into like, once a strategy is defined, once features are defined, making sure that those risks are addressed. How do you think about the various sides of this debate? What is kind of the resolution of this, and why is managing risks so important?
The most important aspect of product manager's work is thinking about the risks, because most of the time we should spend on discovering what to build. As a product manager, you cannot code, you cannot deploy anything to production. Your work is not to test. At least if you work in a good product company, you have QA engineers who can do that. And if something happens in production, unless if this is a technical problem, you shouldn't be involved in that. Engineers can tackle it themselves. So what's left is what happens before delivery, and this is product discovery. So the goal of product discovery is to discover the product to build before you start building anything. And so we need to first discover the best ideas, but the key part is addressing the risks related to value, usability, viability, feasibility. Some people add ethics. There are different risk classifications. You can add go-to-market risk, especially for a new product. Because the problem that the product manager or broadly speaking product trio needs to solve is that most of the ideas do not work. So we need to identify those few ideas that have a potential to be the good ideas and test them before the implementation.
the core, what I'm hearing from you is we need to manage risks as part of the discovery process as an input to strategy. And some of the more project manager delivery aspects of PM, we need to outsource and empower our developers so that we have time to do those. Okay. Okay. Now let's move into prioritizing ideas. So we've been talking a lot about ideas in isolation, strategies in isolation. How do you prioritize different ideas? What's your favorite method?
I do not necessarily start with prioritizing ideas. I try to prioritize opportunities that we have. So those are either customer opportunities or business opportunities, so the problems that are worth solving. And once we understand what are those opportunities that we want to pursue the most, we can prioritize different ideas within those opportunities. I really like Dan Solsen's approach, which is about estimating how important a specific problem is for the customers. So if we are talking about customer opportunity, how important solving a specific problem is for the customer, and how satisfied they are with what they already have. And the more important the problem is, the more value we can create, and the less satisfied they are with what they already have. Also, the more value we can create by solving the specific issue. Then we need to consider the financial perspective, because you might have great problems but solving this problem, so your idea is too expensive for the business. So I like to include a relative estimation of your ideas, and then calculate this is actually pretty simple. So how much value we can create, so opportunity score, divided by the cost of implementing this idea, so that we can maximize the return on the investment. At the same time, I avoid calculating this. So this is like a thinking framework for me, but I do not actually calculate that in Excel or in any other tool. There are also other dimensions that you need to include, like how time critical something is for the business, or sometimes you can have a small customer problem, but you can actually monetize it. And then you by solving a problem, you make some impact for the business. I've been playing with different formulas and different frameworks, and at the end of the day, right now, I use the ICE scoring, so impact, and I just estimate the impact from 0 to 1, 0 to 10. Effort, also relative effort, from 0 to 10. Confidence, so how much, what is our confidence that we can achieve that impact? And if we have a low confidence, perhaps we can run an experiment instead of implementing it, and then re-estimate our confidence again. And I also don't do it in Excel. I just create this table, look at it, and use a common sense to prioritize ideas. So no calculations.
Let's move from product management to content creation, because there are few people with as swift a rise in content as you. About a year ago, you grew from basically 0 to 100K LinkedIn followers in 12 months. Really, really fast, like 7 to 8K followers a month. That's way, way faster than I've ever experienced. On Notes, Substack Notes, your average post gets hundreds of likes. Mine gets like tens of likes. So I want to really break down your framework for content. And I want to start with your hooks, because your hooks are really, really good. How do you think about the hook?
So the hook is important. It has several functions. The first is to select the right audience. So you do not want to communicate to everyone on LinkedIn, but to the people that will benefit from your post. So in many of my hooks, I use product manager or PM as a shortcut, just so that people who have a specific problem can understand that this post is specifically for them. The next function of the hook is to communicate the value of the post. So you make a promise about something that people will get. And later, of course, in the post, you need to deliver on that promise, because you can, you can promise something and not deliver on that promise only several times. And then perhaps the most important function of the hook is to stop the scrolling. So, for example, you can use some numbers or interesting facts or statistics, just so that people cannot easily ignore what you have to say, and you have like 1-2 seconds to grab their attention. But it shouldn't be any attention. You want an attention of people that you are talking to, and they need to understand what they will get by reading your post.
Awesome. So that's the hook. Now, I think your posts themselves, what is kind of the secret to how you create a LinkedIn post? It seems like you probably spend a lot of time on the visual aspect of it and how scannable it is. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think that when it comes to even if you write a text-only post, I estimate that most people who click read more, they actually don't read the post. They just scan the content. They look at the headers and decide whether they like it or not. like really. Just the main points, and they may decide to bookmark it or share it with others, or bookmark it for later and perhaps never read again. So being scannable, easily to scan, easily to understand in terms of the structure, is probably one of the most important attributes of a good post. And visuals helps a lot, because visually you can process much more information when you looking at the picture compared to reading a text. So visuals helps a lot in that understanding. When it comes to the text content, there is the rule of 4S, so short sentences, short paragraphs, short words, and sentences, paragraphs, words. What else?
What is the fourth S?
I'm not sure. So basically everything you, all the elements in your post should be short. Like sometimes you can have a paragraph with 1 or 2 sentences. Sometimes you can have a paragraph with a single sentence, and also the words that you use, they should be clear, easy to understand. Even if the person have a rich vocabulary, it is much more easy to understand if you use common words.
How do you choose your topics for posts?
90% of the time, those are things that are just interesting for me, so I just follow my curiosity. And after writing the post, after exploring some area, then I think how to communicate it to the readers in a way that they will be engaged. But I rarely start with the topics. Like there is no research. Perhaps I should do that more often. I recently do that when writing a post about introduction to AI product management. This was initialized by discovery and research, but in most cases I just follow what seems interesting to me. I create a Substack post, and then I convert this Substack post to a series of LinkedIn or X articles.
Okay. So it's like the hub and spoke model. Your hub is your post, and then you have these spokes, which are like your social media posts that support it. Now, what's really interesting about your social media posts is just how successful they are. Like your average post, it's getting thousands of likes on LinkedIn, hundreds of likes on Substack. Are there any elements that we haven't talked about that are driving the engagement of your posts?
Yeah, I think it is important to, of course, the time when you publish is, people say that it is important. I also notice that, perhaps some times of the day are better than others. But theoretically, Sunday is the worst day to publish. I recently posted on Sunday and got more than 1,000 reactions. If there is one more important element that would be just engaging in conversations, especially within an hour after publishing a post. So that when people reply, when people comment, you try to respond. So they are encouraged to interact with you in the future. And after publishing a post, I actually, at least for an hour, I try to check all the comments and reply to them if there is something to reply to.
All right. So that's LinkedIn. The final element I want to ask about your posts on LinkedIn is your CTAs. How do you think about CTAs? Do you think about links in the post, links outside the post? Most people who post links in the post, they tend to get crushed. If they have 500 average likes, they put a link in, they get 100 average likes. That doesn't seem to be the case with your content. Why is that?
I think you get crushed when you do that on X, but I have not noticed being crushed on LinkedIn. I'm not sure. Are you sure that others get crushed for links? There might be some penalty, but...
Oh, that's the truth for me. So you can just look at my last 7 posts. My 5 without links have 500 plus likes. My 2 with links have like 100 likes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't do anything specific. I just... I was never penalized on LinkedIn for publishing links. And many of my posts, some of my posts contain 10 or more links, and they work as expected. So you need to reach out to LinkedIn, Akash.
I don't think so. I think if I had to summarize what are the differences between your link strategy and mine, number one is your CTA isn't always at the end. I've noticed that your CTAs, you might even have some in the middle. Number 2 is that you often will highlight free content, not content with a paywall. So when people click on it, they're actually going to go get value for free. And then number 3 is I think you're pretty generous with your links. You don't just link to your own content. You link to my content. You link to Marty's content. You link to Sean Ellis's content. So I think those are probably 3 of the things that help your links.
Because... so first of all, it's I doubt I can persuade people to subscribe to the newsletter and stay subscribed if they don't know me before. And the way to let people discover what I offer is providing a real value, not only paid links. Of course, some of the links I post are paid and lead to subscriber-only articles. But as you said, many of them are just to... So how I think about my funnel is that the person should... First, they should subscribe to the newsletter. They should get some value. They should understand what I'm posting about. And only later they can upgrade to a paid version. I do not care about converting people immediately from the start.
Yeah, you have this this again, I think is kind of like a Alex Hormozy, Justin Welsh sort of idea where you're giving a lot of free stuff away. You're developing trust. Then people subscribe to your newsletter. Then you convert them. You're not trying to just like convert them from LinkedIn.
No. Yeah, I think you summarize it. It was not specifically inspired by those people, but yeah, the first thing is to build trust, so that people can know me, they can understand what they can expect, and only later I can ask for them to upgrade.
All right. So LinkedIn is not your only growth channel. We talked a little bit about Substack Notes, and I think there's also SEO. I think are those your top 3 channels? Is there anything I'm missing?
Yeah, there are more, but Substack Notes, Substack recommendations, SEO, and LinkedIn, those are the most important ones.
All right. And I think you've gone deeper on SEO than your average content creator. What have been your learnings over time? What are the people who are just focused on LinkedIn, for instance, missing out about SEO? What are those one-on-one learnings they should get?
Yeah, the great thing about SEO is that it works when you don't. And on LinkedIn, in order to to keep people coming to you, you need to keep posting. And in case you write SEO-friendly articles, there are a few pages that get me hundreds of visits and dozens of subscribers every month without me doing anything. They are just indexed high in Google. And for example, my product strategy canvas, it took some time, but right now when you type product strategy canvas in Google, my product strategy canvas is number 1. And also when you type something like product management resources or free product management resources, there is a high chance that I will be on the first page. Probably I will be in like 80% of the cases. So, yeah. And if you rely on social media, you need to keep posting it. It requires constant effort, and you need to keep investing your time.
So for SEO, obviously you need to create content for terms that matter. What is the other processes? Do you focus on alt text? Do you focus on URL? Do you focus on meta descriptions? Do you focus on generating backlinks? What are the other elements that you do focus on when it comes to SEO?
I perform keyword research. So this is part of my publishing workflow. So before publishing anything, I open Ahrefs. I have some initial idea of the keywords and phrases that I should use, but I do that research and I select. This is not a rocket science. Those are basic techniques. So keywords that have a low keyword difficulty and have a high traffic potential. And I place those keywords, those phrases in the tags, like H1, H2, H3, in the titles. And I also select one of the tags that is aligned with the article title in the URL. So it turns out that it is actually important for the URL to contain the keywords that you most care about. Also, a lot of traffic I got is not from the search text, but from images search. And for that, you need images with the alternative text. And this alternative text needs to include the keywords, so that when people are looking for example, the double diamond that we discussed, or product strategy, they will get my pictures with the links to my pages. And a lot of people visit my newsletter through pictures.
Yeah. And it sounds like this might be an area you could use AI. I'm actually curious throughout your workflow, from generating topics to choosing a topic to writing an article to writing the social media posts afterwards, if that's your workflow, where do you use AI along the journey?
Yeah, until recently, I used AI primarily at the end to check the grammar, to improve the flow, grammar, flow, logical errors, statistical errors. It's much better than Grammarly. But I also use AI for ideating. It's not that I have a specific workflow when exactly I use it. But for example, I can upload a list of my articles, or another example. Recently, I uploaded a series of questions or topics related to artificial intelligence I found on Reddit. And I asked AI to identify the pain points that people have and the questions that they commonly ask and suggest different post ideas. But this was more in this ideation phase. I use AI less in the middle. So ideation, the initial research. Sometimes I use Perplexity. I do not have it's not like a strictly defined workflow. Then I usually write an article without the help of AI, and I use AI to check the flow, to improve the grammar, to suggest any changes that will make it more easy to read. And sometimes I accept those changes, sometimes I do not. It depends on the case.
And what's your favorite AI? You mentioned Perplexity. Is that the main one you use? Do you use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini?
I use ChatGPT. Right now, for most of the queries, I use the ChatGPT 4.0, and for those complex searches, when I want to scan an entire article and find any logical or flow issues, I use O1 Preview. And it's enough. The limits are not that high, but if you only want to validate the end result, it's enough for me.
Okay, so you're a big ChatGPT Perplexity user. You don't use Notebook LM or anything like that?
No, I've been using it in the past. I've been playing with Notebook LM podcast, of course, but no, I don't use it to create content.
Okay. So last question related to content is, how do you manage your time with a full-time job plus a full-time content business, which is really big, by the way? What are the tools and techniques you use?
So first of all, I think that what is important here is what I do not do. So I do not focus on delivery. And I'm fortunate enough to have a team that can handle delivery themselves. So recently during a big release, I took a few days off, and it was not a problem. And I knew that if something happened on production, I'm not a developer, I'm not a tester, so what they should need me for, they can make that. They understand the objectives, they understand why we were building it, and they can make decisions themselves. So this really helps me a lot, so that I can focus on the discovery part more. I automate a lot. So I have a library of custom queries, some of which I shared, but I often write queries or scripts, like temporary scripts, just to perform specific tasks. Like, for example, to import data from Jira to Excel or from Notion to some other system. I use ChatGPT for that to write a simple script, run the script, and perform the task. Or, for example, to create a report based on the raw data. I write PRDs with the help of scripts and the templates that I defined. I summarize interviews with LLMs. I did with LLMs. Of course, I need to verify the outputs, but I think it allows me to save a lot of time.
This episode is brought to you by Dovetail, the AI-first customer insights hub for all teams. Dovetail has always been the go-to tool for teams that want to find insights in customer calls, user interviews, or documents. Now they've stepped it up with the release of Dovetail 3.0. It's 3 new products and a ton of AI features that make it faster and easier than ever before to truly get to the heart of what your customers want. You can get a real-time pulse on what your customers are thinking with Dovetail's automated feedback analysis platform, Channels, or pull summaries and insights from every customer interaction your team has ever had using their conversational AI, Ask Dovetail. You can even recruit from over 3 million participants directly in Dovetail. All of this is just the tip of the iceberg. Dovetail wants to give everyone in the organization instant access to their customers at any time. From roadmaps, discovery to strategy sessions, and more, it's never been easier to make customer-centric decisions. The good news? Listeners of this podcast can try Dovetail's Pro plan along with their newest products and features free for 30 days. Just go to dovetail.com/Akash. You've built AI into all of your workflows to be more efficient. And I think that's the key here is your average PM, if you go look at Reddit, they're all burned out, but I think it's probably because they're not using these AI tools enough. They're not creating these custom scripts that they have. They're not leveraging the tools, or they're getting sucked into delivery. It sounds like those are the 2 sort of big things you do in order to manage your time.
Yeah, if you are not sucked in delivery, I know that you have said many times that PM has to work. In many companies, they have to work like 60 hours a week. But if you are not responsible for delivery, you are not testing your product, for me, 40 hours is more than enough. It's really more than I need to, so that I have time to write a newsletter and at the same time manage the core product team. And people are happy with my performance.
So a lot of PMs, as a part of job searching, they're thinking about the idea of writing content like you and I do. Is that a good idea or not?
I doubt it matters. The last time I applied for a job, I was actually minimizing in some resumes, I have totally hidden that I create some content because recruiters are not interested in, they don't want a content creator. If they are looking for a PM, they are focused on getting a product manager resume. And you need to match the criteria in the job description. And adding some content creator, newsletter writer, podcaster, this can only increase the cognitive load, and they are more likely to go to the next resume. So I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think like the trend to like write content to get a job, the only place it might make sense is as a leader. And still as a leader, I think you're better off, speaking at conferences or being a podcast guest than you are kind of creating your own content powerhouse.
Yeah, makes sense. And you can also network on LinkedIn. Perhaps you can use your content not to demonstrate the content in the resume, but to, build connections or spark discussions. But you can also do it without writing a content, just by writing insightful comments under other posts. So that's probably easier.
All right. So that's a brief overview of all of these topics that Paul is an expert in, whether it was discovery, strategy, managing your time, content. Now we're going to move to the lightning round. What's your favorite interview question of product management candidates?
I really like asking about how do you know what to build, because it reveals a lot of like the entire workflow. So it reveals how they understand the product manager job. If they understand what discovery is, whether this is only a task for them or maybe others also should be involved. So there are many different things that.
Yeah, I think it's very revealing. So you're a voracious reader. You've published some lists of your top product management books before. We see some books behind you if we're watching on video. What's an under the radar book that people might not know, but has a lot of lessons for product people?
I think the book that everyone should read is The Right It by Alberto Savoia, and at least for me, it was under the radar. I read it just last year, and it introduces a lot of new concepts, new ideas, like the necessity to use your own data rather than data collecting by others, a specific way to express and test the market engagement. This is the XYZ hypothesis. And also it is a great source of insights about collecting skin in the game and how to measure that skin in the game when testing new product ideas. So for me, it's the number one book for if you want to build a startup and test how people engage with your idea.
All right. High praise from you. What's a newsletter you anticipate hitting your inbox?
Yeah, the newsletter or maybe blog I'm waiting the most for is Marty Kagan blog. And even though those articles do not necessarily contain any frameworks or to-do lists or some templates that you can download and use in your work, they discuss very deep topics, sometimes philosophical. So like maybe not every, but every second post is something that I can print and hang on the wall. So that's my favorite one.
Yeah, they have like a Paul Graham-esque quality for product management. And I heard Marty used your slides in his conference talk in Nigeria this weekend. So congrats on that. What product feature or product are you most proud of shipping?
Yeah, I think I'm really proud when I started a startup and we didn't have a product at that time. My first customer became the biggest Polish Airlines lot. And we created a SharePoint intranet for them, which allows, and we did it like for crazy money. It was like $1,000 for an intranet worth maybe 50,000. But we got references, and it allowed us to position ourselves as Polish leader in SharePoint intranets, and dozens of other sales and enterprise customers followed that implementation. So maybe it was not technically, it was a simple product, but from the business perspective, I'm really proud that we were able to do that and later build upon that success.
Yeah, I think that's the playbook for enterprise is sign like a name brand enterprise client for pennies and then watch all the others sign for your full price. What's one particularly memorable product failure that you learned from? The biggest, maybe it was not a single failure, but rather a period where I failed. It was after transitioning from a product leader to a team leader to a project manager. Because first I was a project manager for maybe for 2 years in my career. And then the issue is that as a
team leader, I was able to trust the people because I was not responsible directly for finances. And as a project manager, actually, I became a department manager, so it was more a program manager position. And I started micromanaging people, and as a result, they were disengaged at work. And I thought I need to control them even more and specify the tasks. Add all those details. I was testing software myself as a former developer. I was even fixing some bugs in production. But the more I tried, the more people were disengaged at work. So over time, I learned to trust more, and I reverted to that previous approach of a team leader. So I learned how to trust, how to communicate the strategic context and trust more that I'm comfortable with. But it was a process. So for 3 years, I was failing as a leader. So that was probably my biggest failure.
I think that's one of those lessons you can hear a million leaders tell you, but until you go experience it, it's hard to internalize. So thanks for being vulnerable and sharing that. Where can people find you online, and how can they help you?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can also visit, that's the best place, my newsletter, the Product Compass. So this is productcompass.pm. How they can help me? They can join my community, so they can subscribe. They will get access to all my content. My 2 courses, one course on product strategy, which is called From Strategy to Objectives. And the other one is about continuous product discovery. They can get certified. And also my subscribers can join our private Slack community, where they can interact with me and write me a direct message, or network and meet other product people, mostly product managers.
Amazing. All right, guys. Well, if there's one voice I personally turn to when I have a problem, it is Powell. As I hope you learned from this podcast, he has a wealth of insights. Let's go give him a couple hundred, couple thousand more followers on LinkedIn and subscribers to his newsletter. And thank you for being here.
Thank you, Akash. That was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Also, please consider giving us a rating or leaving a review, as that really helps other listeners find out about the podcast. You can find all the past episodes or learn more about the show at product-growth.com. See you in the next episode.